I want to start with this, and I don't want to make this self-serving. I want to make sure that this is understood, that we are making sure that everyone understands basic terminology, basic systems of government, and you can come out with the absolute facts, and you decide which is which. Okay. The Washington Post came out yesterday with a story. Glenn Beck is resurrecting rhetoric that has long falsely targeted Democratic presidents. This is strangely after 12 weeks out, 15 weeks out, the book on the Great Reset. The Washington Post has decided to not do a book review because it's pretty clear the guy didn't read the book. But it's not a book review. It's instead an attack on me. Again, calling me Father Coughlin, which if anybody but you progressives knew who he was, it would be so effective. But only you guys know who he is because you gave birth to him. Anyway, the Washington Post says, according to the right-wing commentator Glenn Beck, President Biden is a fascist. In his latest book, Beck and co-author Justin Haskins warned that Biden is aligned with a cabal of international elites, plotting to create a new kind of fascism that resembles Nazi-era controls on businesses in Germany. How is Biden promoting this takeover? As far as Beck and Haskins are concerned, it's through his Build Back Better economic plan. Isn't that ridiculous? Those are just efforts to combat climate change and coronavirus mask and vaccine mandates. Is that what the Build Back Better plan is? Because I think the people, maybe all around the world involved in the economic forum, let's say the Prime Minister of Japan, who also ran on his Build Back Better plan, or the Build Back Better plan that Boris Johnson ran on. I don't think it's about mask mandates, but maybe that's just me. This alleged plot, no, it's not an alleged plot. It's right there. If you read the book, you'd see the about 50-page of fine print footnotes quoting them. You're not having to look at a conspiracy theory or anything. I'm just quoting whitehouse.gov, treasury.gov, WEF.org. That's all I'm doing. So it's not really my theory. Anyway, the alleged plot would probably surprise Biden. Biden is surprised every day. He still wakes up. His support for labor unions, increased corporate taxes, and higher minimum wage are widely opposed by the very same bankers and big businesses that Beck and Haskins assert are backing the fascist scheme. This guy is living in 1972. He has no idea what's happening in the current business world, or he's either a useful idiot or he's a propagandist. Even if Beck claims don't make sense, they don't make sense? How do they not make sense? That's weird. It doesn't make sense that it's the number one best-selling book in the nation, has been for weeks, and yet I'm 15 on the New York Times bestseller list. That doesn't make sense. The Fox News host is the 6th most popular talk radio show in the country. Wow. Actually, I think I'm 15th in the New York Times, and I believe I'm 12th in talk radio. Blah, 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 blah. Equally important, Beck is tapping into deep historical vein of conservative thinking. Right-wing media used remarkably similar and sometimes even harsher rhetoric against Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the 1930s. Conservative commentators frequently compared Roosevelt to the tyrannical Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, and Joseph Stalin, who were terrorizing their countries and menacing the world during his presidency. First of all, you wouldn't know that Joseph Stalin was terrorizing his people because the New York Times was covering up all of the atrocities. The New York Times was saying that Stalin was great. Time magazine, Mussolini, he's great. So before we move on, let's figure out what fascism actually means. Now, from Merriam-Webster, you have a political philosophy, a movement or regime, such as the fascisti, that exalts nation and often race above the individual and stands for centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Okay, who's suppressing the opposition? Who's the one calling parents who stand up and say, I don't think this should be taught? Who's the one defining them as terrorists? Who's the one that says, now, I love Bezos, what a joke. By the way, have you seen his new building in Virginia? The new, it's again phallic shaped. I don't know what the deal is with this guy, but it's more like a pig. Anyway. So I don't know what it is about these guys where they seem to miss. In fact, just yesterday, do we have Jen Psaki on Twitter and how we really should? Are we going to still talk to these people? Are we still going to make lists of who should be banned and not? Listen.
The Surgeon General has said that misinformation about COVID amounts to a public health crisis.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, regardless of ownership, would the White House be interested in working with Twitter like it has in the past to continue to combat this kind of misinformation? Or are we in a different part of the pandemic where that kind of partnership is no longer necessary?
Well, I think we engage regularly with all social media platforms about steps that can be taken. That has continued, and I'm sure it will continue. But there are also reforms.
Stop. What is she saying? What is she saying? We contact social media regularly, and they have said it in the past, to give them lists of names of people that should not be taken seriously, and maybe the algorithm should be changed. By the way, Stu, did you see I gained 100,000 followers on Twitter just last night? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that nuts?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. People all over the country, conservatives, are finding that their Twitter numbers just went up overnight. It's really weird. Anyway, fascists believe, now this is according to Wikipedia. Now, tell me, this is Wikipedia. Remember, run by Marxists. Okay? This is Wikipedia. Help me out, Stu, on what you think maybe the Washington Post is missing here. Fascists believe that liberal democracy, let me define that, liberal democracy means people who believe in the maximum amount of freedom before anarchy. Okay?
It's not like liberal in our current political sense.
No, that
This
was
is classical
FDR
liberal.
that changed that. Okay? He changed it to get rid of the constitutional argument. So a liberal democracy is what I believe in. Okay? The fascists believe that a liberal democracy is obsolete. Now, which side is it that says, that's an old dusty document, the founders, are irrelevant, all of the Constitution is irrelevant? Who is that? Second sentence, they regard the complete, listen to this, they regard the complete mobilization of society under a totalitarian one-party state as necessary to prepare a nation for armed conflict and to respond effectively to economic difficulties. Now, how many times have you heard them say, global warming, this is a war? How many times have you heard the Biden administration say about the Great Reset that this is going to be a war that lasts for decades? Why is he saying that? Because he needs to, complete mobilization of society under a totalitarian one-party state. Does anybody doubt that the fascists or I should say the progressives in either party, wouldn't mind offing the other party and just say, yeah, it's all Republicans and all Democrats. You'd have a few Republicans, but you'd have the majority of the Democrats. You'd certainly have AOC and Bernie and everybody else. Okay. They also say a fascist state is led by a strong leader. Okay, they got me there. Okay. And martial law government composed of the members of the governing fascist party to forge national unity and maintain a stable and orderly society. I would say that that's what happened during COVID. Fascism rejects assertions that violence is automatically negative. Isn't that weird? Like violence on January 6th was negative, but violence for BLM was not negative. They view political violence and war as a means that can achieve national rejuvenation. Mark my words, that's going to become very important this fall. It might even happen after the Supreme Court issues all of its rulings. They are going to go bat crap crazy. And I believe they're going to just try to burn this whole thing down. They also advocate a national economic self-efficiency through protectionist and economic interventionist policies. What have you been hearing lately? The lie from them. This global thing is not working. We've got to really come back to our nation. I mean, I'm saying that for common sense. But what they're saying is that's why we have to globalize even more through the Great Reset. They're using the terminology, but they're saying, but we're gonna globalize even more. We're just gonna cut half the globe out. The extreme authoritarianism and nationalism often manifests a belief in racial purity or a master race. Now, I think the fascist, that's why the book says 21st century fascism, not 20th century, because the fascists then were saying Jews. And by the way, fascism doesn't always include race, doesn't. It often leads to that because people are generally evil that want to rule everybody's lives and generally nuts. And so they have to get rid of people. And so they just get rid of more and more people. Anyway, you don't have to do that. But it also depends on who the fascist is. Hitler was crazy nuts, hated the Jews. So he blamed it on the Jews. That generally comes from a socialist standpoint. You know, Marxism, hatred of the Jews, kind of goes hand in glove. But Mussolini didn't. Mussolini didn't hate the Jews. In fact, he really despised Hitler for that. And you know what's weird is it's almost like, let me read this again. The extreme authoritarianism and nationalism of fascism often manifest in a belief of racial purity and a master race. Kind of like white people are bad no matter what they do, and black people or people of color are good no matter what they do. So we've lost all reason, and we've lost Martin Luther King's idea of race doesn't matter. Who's pushing that race matters and that there's a bad race? Who's pushing that? Is that the left or is that the right? Also, fascist regimes have been led to commit genocides, massacres, forced sterilization. Who? Was that the left or the right? Was that the liberal democratic person or was that the progressive that did that? I don't know what you're missing, Washington Post, other than logic, facts, history. But it's good to know that I must be getting under your skin. I must have, for you to get a call to say, hey, would you write something on this book? For you to get that call from, I don't know who your overlord is, it must mean that this is causing them some problems. And I would just like to say, the book is available wherever you buy books. You can get it online or go to glensnewbook.com and get it. It's called The Great Reset, Joe Biden and 21st Century Fascism.